everyone, and welcome to another episode of Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly, a podcast conversation with successful business owners who share their secrets of thriving in business while living with chronic illness. Here's Nancy Becker.
Hey everyone, I am Nancy, the Chief Flying Pig Wrangler, and I help women business owners with chronic illness map out their journey and implement new systems in their business so that it can function more efficiently. Do you need better systems to scale your company? Would you like to have some productivity hacks to get you through the day? Do you have a chronic illness? Well, here at Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly, we have conversations that share the tools and mindsets others use to make our businesses grow more easily. I know our guest today has some insight into that, so grab your pens and paper and get started taking notes. It's going to be good. Welcome, Laurie Smith.
Thank you. So much pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. We're just going to have some fun today.
Woohoo! All right. Well, thank you for having me on.
Laurie, tell us a little bit about who you are and what brought you here.
I could talk all day, but basically I've been a social worker, LMSW, for 20 years. I've worked in schools, I've worked in rural, I've worked in large cities, I've worked with individuals, systems. I'm a certified diabetes educator. I have 3 additional certifications in trauma, addiction, anxiety, well-versed in harm reduction. I have 2 businesses and a book. And so I've kind of been a little bit here, a little bit there, and I love to help people.
Sounds like a great background and things that we need to know about. And I know we were talking the other day off camera about some of these things. And there's something that with your being a counselor, there's something that I think a lot of my listeners maybe don't necessarily want to hear, but could probably benefit from hearing. And that is the fact that there's a couple of things. Nobody wants to think that they are lacking or that they need something, first of all. And women, above all, are raised from the very early ages to be caregivers, to take care of other people, to take care of everything around them. We're the ones that take care of the houses. We're the ones that take care of the families. We do the cooking, we do the cleaning, we do all of that, and we run our own businesses. So when it comes to...
And yet we haven't been a president yet.
That's right. Dadgummit, that's going to change. But when it comes then time to say, I can't do it, I need help. Sure, we can hire someone to clean our house. We can hire someone to or buy the boxes of food that allow us to not have to buy groceries. That's okay. We get that, we do that. That's not taking anything away from us. But when we get sick and we can't do things any longer, we just collapse. There's nothing that allows us to pick up and keep going. So how do we deal with things like that?
I mean, do you have a couple days for a seminar? Because these are really complicated questions, but we have to start talking about them. You are so right. I will stick to women in general, but I will say that everybody in this culture that we currently live in, whether we like it or not, it's capitalistic. And with that comes this certain value of we need to be productive. And I am not, I'm not advocating that we change that system. It's important to know that when we don't feel productive, we often feel less than, specifically as women, because of that gender culturation and all of that stuff. So it goes even deeper than that, though. It really goes beyond gender and all of that stuff. There's so many dynamics. However, if you have grown up, and I don't know any of us who really haven't at this point, but if you've grown up with instability in your life or some things going on in your youth that were not sort of, speaking personally, there was some domestic violence in some of the homes that I lived in growing up. Well, that's a very unsafe environment for a child. And we can talk all day about domestic violence. That's not what we're here for. The point is, when you grow up believing that you have to be X, Y, and Z, it is a really hard pill to digest when your shoulds, and I'm putting those in quotes, don't match what is your reality. I should be this, I should be that, I should do this, I should have known this for my kid, I should have packed their lunch, I should, and so we feel like we aren't living up to expectations. And I want to invite us to consider who's making those expectations, because if we are not meeting our own expectations, that's adjustable. We can talk about that. But if we're shooting to meet the expectations of everybody else in the world, we are kind of setting ourselves up to fail. Does that make sense at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's a lot of room to play when you start to think, oh, I'm doing things because I think I should. Well, who says? Who says? This is your business. This is your family. Use the assets that you've been given. Women are very relational. We are very caregiving. We are very sort of micromanaging. We have these sort of innate intelligence. We can use those for our benefit too, and we don't have to. We get to decide. We have some say in that. And I see in particular women, most people in this country right now don't feel like they have a lot of say in things. But when that's happening, then we're scrambling to try to control whatever we can. And that's when we get into, oh my God, I got to make dinner at 5 p.m. for the family. Oh my God, my business has to make this much money. Oh my God, we just get into again, we're spinning in these shoulds, and we need to take a deep breath. Because interesting enough, breathing gives us oxygen to our brain, which is the thing that's going to help us solve these issues. But we can't access that part of the brain if we're on fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Interesting.
So when you have a chronic illness, and when that's fluctuating, and you can't depend on it, that is a different way of living than what you think you quote unquote should be doing. I have bipolar. I have leaned into that. I do know that I work better in the summer than I do in the winter. So I adapt, and I put processes in place so that I can rest in the winter. And oddly enough, we're in winter, and winter is a time for hibernation and rest and rejuvenation. And so let's not be afraid to rest. That's not where we're going to stay. It just by default, it's going to occur to us to go to the bathroom. It's going to occur to us to dinner. It's going to occur to us at some point. I've been in deep depressions. They don't last forever. We do have solutions. But the thing is, if we're afraid to not be enough, if we're afraid that we're not doing what we should, then where's our cheerleader? Because we're kind of our own worst enemy sometimes.
Do you think that for many of us, we don't even realize what's going on?
To be quite honest, I think we have, in the past 50 years at least, and I'm pretty savvy with our history, there isn't a lot of room for error in terms of it's really becoming more of a life or death situation that we have financial stability to afford rent and food. And I speak from, I've worked with doctors too. They're even struggling. This isn't a social class issue. So as a result of that, there's a part of the brain that it's instinctual, and it's geared towards our survival. So I want us to imagine that is the back of our brain. That's kind of like the reptile brain, they call it. It's like the innate, it's only going to keep us alive. If life feels like it's always on fire and you have to put out a fire, we're not transitioning our brain consciously into the front part of the brain. And it's interesting because I worked with children who have they call it executive functioning issues. And I don't really want to get off the topic, but those are the little kids who can't sit still in school, and they're, getting in trouble, and, they've got a lot of energy, and we are not assisting ourselves with getting into the executive part of the brain which is kind of the manager. It's the problem solver. It's the leader. It's the prioritizer. It's the rationalizer. It is in my practice in therapy, I've come to understand if we just know that there's that sort of emergency brain, and I call it the adult brain, the switching the gears is long. We can actually switch the gears through breathing 3 to 4 times with a nice deep breath. And that, I'm not minimizing the value of that. That gets oxygen to our heart, that gets oxygen to our brain, that gets oxygen to our lungs. And because of that oxygen, cells are moving around and we are accessing parts of our brain that were unconsciously blocked before. So it isn't really a matter of working harder, which is, I think, maybe what you and I might want to talk about a little bit. It's about working differently. There is no better or worse. It's just we have to, this would be a different type of adaptation, but why are we holding ourselves hostage? Why are we beating ourselves up? Why are we ashamed that we have to adapt in this chapter of our lives? Because we've been adapting the whole time, and guess what? We have taken that for granted, and we haven't looked at all of the things we have accomplished.
Absolutely.
Because our brain has a negativity bias. So it's always looking, oh my God, there's a problem. Yes, of course there's a problem. Whew. I don't have to figure this out because my brain is going to work if I let it.
I think that's wonderful.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but essentially, I mean, as long as we know we can switch gears and to not be afraid of when we need to rest, because that is not permanent.
Right. Well, and I think that brings up an excellent point here in our conversation is the need to rest. We've been talking about going and doing everything and all of that. But when you have a chronic illness or an autoimmune disorder of some sort, we don't have the energy we used to have. And when we keep going, because that's what we've been programmed, we wind up in bed, in the hospital, in all these different locations where we're forced to rest.
So this is interesting because there's a study called the ACEs study, an adverse childhood experiences study. And to your point, I'm getting there. If those things, the more that you have of those, there's 10 of them, I think, and the more that you have, the CDC now knows that you're going to be at higher risk for things like diabetes, inflammation, chronic illness, chronic back pain, all of this stuff, high blood pressure. We know now that if we do not take care of our mental health and physical body, it will not take care of us. Why aren't we talking about that? Imagine if you are in a business, let's just talk about business because that's what we're here for. You've had a business, it's the first 6 months, you're terrified to fail, you got to put all this investment in, and your kids are taking priority, and that gets really confusing, gets really overwhelming, gets really stressful. And we're going to ask ourselves to work even harder. Now, we can do that, but that's a really short-term solution, because if we're not looking long-term, that is not going to keep our business open. For me, what's been helpful is to learn my own rhythms. And I highly encourage any of my clients to kind of know what's your good time of the day? What's your good time of the week? Is May better than June? Not in a more work kind of way, but just a noticing kind of way. Like, oh, right. Like, oh yeah, I took the kids like 15 minutes early this morning to school. And that allowed me to go get my favorite coffee, which made my morning extra better. Or, it's just so little that we have to change. But where I see us getting stuck is that we're ashamed.
I think I deal with this all the time, but you said the phrase mental health and I'm going,
right? Right. Because we are so conditioned to think that any mental health is bad. Mm-hmm. Really? We have a brain, we have a body, we actually have something called a soma, which is the energy around us, which we know makes a difference. When I walk into a room, I know who's stressed or not. We need to use these assets we have. That is a skill. I didn't learn that by accident. And guess what? If I start tuning into my body and what it's telling me and how it's telling me to work. Yep, today I've had to cancel clients because of a migraine before. I'm going to feel guilty about that, but guess what? Not as much as I would have 3 or 4 years ago when I thought that it was a life or death. Oh my God, my clients need me so much. Well, my little sweetheart wants to help them. And guess what? The reality is they're with me an hour a week. I am not making that much of a difference in their life. So on one hand, we do want to take our businesses seriously, but on the other hand, our businesses will not run if we're not well. Right. So we better be taking that seriously, because that's going to affect our families too. Yeah. And the quality production that we're putting out.
Well, and that's a perfect segue into the next section of what I want to talk about. Ooh. And that is a few comments ago, you talked about working differently.
Yeah.
And that's my whole reason for being, is to show people that you can work differently and still be successful. You may need to rethink what is success.
Thank you.
You know, you may need to find the new, and for me, it's all about finding the tools and the strategies so that I don't have to do everything myself. I had an executive assistant for over 10 years. That did everything for me, which allowed me to just do the podcasts, to do my trainings. Yep. Well, she had the audacity to quit back in June. She was getting ready to be a grandma for the 5th time and decided her daughter needed some help around the house, and she couldn't help me and her daughter. And for some reason she chose her daughter. I don't understand.
I know, right? Like,
I know, but
the production.
I tell you, but from June until now, I've been doing it all myself. And I found a wonderful new group of people. I've gone through 5 different VA companies because I couldn't get anybody to do.
Can I tell you, I so relate. It's tough anyway.
But I finally have found one. But we've been working together for a month, and we have yet to produce anything because we're working on the back office. And I'm exhausted. I haven't done this crap in 10 years.
And you're probably resentful that you have to. And here I am running a business, and I'm working way more hours than I want to, doing way more than I want. And what is the benefit of this? I should just go work at McDonald's. I mean, honestly, I have thought that. Except for, why would we even deduce that an executive assistant for 10 years is going to produce a certain quality of work that you're going to continue on in the same way? Like, are we serious with this expectation of ourselves? It's a transition period. It is a learning period. It's an adaptation period. And we need to really kind of be kind to ourselves. Your success, like to your point, who is defining that? To me, my success is I need to go to bed with my head on the pillow knowing I've had a good day. And it might not be, maybe today wasn't the best day. Maybe I didn't get, there's 100 things on my to-do list, and I feel like I have to do them all. Okay, deep breath. I promise you, if you do 3 to 4 deep breaths, in 4, hold 1, out 4. If you do that 4 to 5 times, your nervous system changes.
Get dizzy and pass out.
Well, but that speaks to the lack of oxygen you are currently sort of carrying. So we don't have to don't do it laborious, just nice and easy. But the point is to get more oxygen, because again, this is silly. This is kind of silly that we're saying, oh, well, I have to do everything that exactly the same way. First of all, this is a different chapter in your company. Second of all, do you want to do all of that stuff? And third of all, what can you afford to deprioritize? And this is where we get to the rubber hits the road. Again, I'm going to go back to you, because if you are not well, if you're not taking care of your own stuff, it's going to trickle down into your business, and it's going to show. And so do you want quality in your business, or do you want quantity? Now, you put a lot of systems in place, and I will say that systems actually detoured me. I'm a little bit new in my businesses. The VAs, I spent so much money and time trying to teach what I really didn't want to learn. And that's, there's a benefit, but not if you're teaching it 3 to 4 times in a row and you're more frustrated and you're spending money and now you're resentful because you still have to do it. Okay, this is not going to go at the pace I want. I don't have to have it go at the pace I want. It is going to look different than how I thought it would. And I'm going to practice adapting and being okay with this. Because at the end of the day, this is my business. These are my rules only. And again, because of that life or death brain, oh my gosh, if I don't make the money this month, yeah, okay, that's true. And it's very scary. And in reality, I mean, not to get too graphic, but there's a lot of things that you can do for money if you really need to do them that we don't want to do. And that's a good thing. We don't have to do that. I mean, I know plenty of people who sold drugs to make their income. We don't want to do that. We don't have to, but we're forgetting that we have choices and we get to decide where our priorities are. That should be a relief. Maybe this week you're not going to get your business done. Maybe this week you're, for instance, I've worked with diabetics, their blood sugars are high and they don't have the energy. They don't have the mind capacity. And so what I like to do is work with a little bit of the mind tricks. Now, I don't even call them tricks, but there's there's something to be said for motivation, fear, and shame and all of that. What really needs to get done today? What's the priority? Like, what do I not want to go to my head, to my bed with my head on the pillow, not having done today?
And I think shame is a big part of that. And once again, I don't believe that anyone can put shame on you. It's how you see it yourself.
So many things. Yeah.
And, for me, my shame comes in when I say I'm not successful.
Yeah.
I've worked and I don't have enough clients. I don't have enough money.
Yep.
Nobody thinks and there's the imposter syndrome coming in. Nobody thinks I'm good enough. Why would anyone want to work with me? Oh, I'm so ashamed.
And you know what? They're not going to, if that's the way you think, innocently, because if you're not investing in you, quite frankly, I don't really want to support, not you personally, but I don't want to support a business where somebody is not, don't misunderstand. There is definitely something to be said for skill and quality and experience and all of that. But if I'm working with somebody who can't access what I need to know, like how to not be ashamed, and how to do this imperfectly, and how to do this uniquely and individually.
Well, and I think setting up our goals and what we want. I mean, and I'm using examples. I'm not saying that this is actually me. But
no, sure.
But for instance, if my goal was to make $1 million,
yep,
and I've only made 500,000, then I'm so ashamed because I didn't meet my goal.
Let's talk a little bit. Goals are so valuable. I set goals with my clients every day in therapy. However, it's a goal. That is sort of an intention, which is a really good sort of parallel to go on, except for we get hung up when the expectation doesn't meet reality. And so I would invite us to consider a goal is a very moving and shifting thing. And we get to change that if we need to, but who's benefiting when we say, I mean, I'm guilty of this too. Oh my God, I need to make X amount of money. Oh my God, I made half that. Oh, I'm such a failure. Well, hold on a second. How much did you make last year? How much have you made in your life? Have you looked at all of the things that you've learned? And again, that shame, because it keeps us back in that little reptilian brain, our brain doesn't see the good things what is working. What is working? Because there are things that are working. I will tell you right now, the worst thing that I hate, it's so difficult for me to sit down and learn one more thing about my business. The stupidest thing that helps me motivate myself to get through that task is music without words. like meditation music. Because now my brain, after a couple times, this is muscle memory, this is rewiring your brain. Now my brain knows, oh, I'm not going to do work. I'm going to just, relax with my medicine or my music, and we'll get this done. And I'm distracted a little bit enough to tolerate it. And that's how I get done what needs to get done on the days that I'm doing my worst. And sometimes that's all I can do. And gosh darn it, if we're not our own best cheerleader, who in this world is going to be? Our clients are looking at us as leaders. We are incredibly skilled. We are incredibly talented. We are incredibly go-getters. It's time we start giving ourselves credit for what is working, as well as what we always, of course, need to improve on. There's a really good book called The Gift of Imperfection by Brene Brown. She's pretty pop culture right now, but she talks a lot about shame, and it's just not, it's a symptom. It's not, every emotion, there's no permanent emotion. It's all like waves in the ocean. They're coming, they're going. Let's not be afraid of the shame. Well, I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like an imposter. Okay, feel that way. Know that that's not permanent. Know that if oh my goodness, now we're going to get into marketing, but if you see a commercial on TV about Christmas and you have a good memory from Christmas 20 years ago, you're going to be in a completely different mood than before that Christmas. I mean, that is how minimal you have to be conscious to work differently. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's simple. I mean, I tell my clients all the time, a good memory is as beneficial as like a warm glass of tea or a deep breath. I mean, because that can shift your energy, and we don't even have to try that hard. We just know that it's doable. That's it. There's no expectations. We don't have to do this perfectly. We just have to make room for ourselves, which, as you started this conversation, is the thing that we do the least of.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And I know I tell my clients, I do a lot of work using SMART goals.
Yeah, awesome.
And SMART goals, for anybody who doesn't know what they are, and I take them a little bit farther, because a goal is something that you want. And with a SMART goal, you have to make sure that, and I can never remember what they are, realistic and measurable, specific.
Action,
and relevant and time bound and all of those different things. But then I love the phrase, a goal is just a dream until you put it to work. And once you've got that goal, then you have to figure out what's it going to take to get you there. And, and I always have them put times, I will complete this, but it's okay if you don't.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I give homework every day in session, and I'm like, look, if you don't do this, it's no skin off my back. It's just something to marinate on this week, which is what a goal should be. Let's just marinate and move in that direction. I like the SMART goals. I use them quite often. And what I would tell clients, like, for instance, let's just take the next year for business. At the end of next year, where do you want to be? What kind of goals do you, what do you want it to look like? Let's reverse engineer it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because again, we're not conscious of the things that are working. We can minimize this into a day. We can review our day. Oh, today I'm going to read 5 emails, but we have to make it achievable and realistic. So once we know that we can read 5 emails today, if we've conquered that, then guess what tomorrow brings? Well, maybe I can read 5 more tomorrow. Maybe I can read 6 tomorrow. Maybe I can read 15. And you build on success, which really is such a better quality of life.
Yeah. I tell my clients at the end of the day, have a pile of sticky notes. And at the end of the day, write down every success you've had during that day. Yeah. And it could be, I got out of bed. It could
absolutely
be, it could be, I checked my sugar. I didn't want to, but I checked my sugar.
Do you know that I worked for 10 years with persons with diabetes who, I get it, who wants to check their blood sugar, especially more than once a day, who wants to be managing their medicine. I do understand that. Let's not focus on the medicine. Let's focus on what it tells you and what the purpose is for you. What is the meaning for you that you're doing this? Because that builds your investment, that builds your motivation. And when you see you actually can do hard things, because newsflash, there's not a day in my life I haven't done a hard thing. Have you?
Yeah.
I mean,
no.
Even on the days.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, that's why when you write down those things on the sticky notes, I take it one step further. I say, find a spot. It can be, a bulletin board that's in front of your face. It can be a mirror. It can be the back of your bedroom door, but stick those sticky notes.
Love it.
So that you see them.
Yes. It's so tangible.
Yes. And that makes you feel good about what you're doing.
That's like a Facebook memory. I don't know if you do the memories in Facebook, but you go back 4 years ago and you look at a picture and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because again, if we're not our own biggest cheerleader, and this is science, this is neurobiology. If you are not in your corner, there is absolutely nobody in this world who is going to have the information you have about your life. You have got to be invested in your own well-being, because the business is dependent on you.
Absolutely.
No pressure. However you show up, whether you give it your all or not, whether you give it 5% or not, whether you pull the covers over your head and say, you know what, today is not that day. And I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to challenge myself to be okay with that, because I don't know what energy I'm going to have tomorrow. And I've been pleasantly surprised when I've ridden the path of my own sort of rhythms, because there are days where I'm manic and I get shit done like nobody's business. And there are days where I don't get out of bed and it's not permanent.
Yeah. I could go on talking forever.
I know, right?
But you got another appointment, so we got.
I know. I hope this was helpful.
Get going. This has been absolutely wonderful, and guys, I'm hoping that you've written tons of notes. If you have questions for Laurie, if you think she might be the kind of person that you want to work with, Laurie, how does someone get a hold of you?
L Smith, LSMITH at resiliencecoachllc.com. So I can send you that link.
It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. And then also I've written a book, Life Hacks. It's actually about how to just sort of micro benefits to your day, like how to really get some juice out of your day, no matter what kind of day you're having, and give yourself some grace. Because the reality is we would give our families all of the compassion in the world, but we don't ourselves. And that is not a good balance for sustainable business or chronic illness.
Absolutely. Laurie, thank you so much for all of the wonderful information today. I know it's enlightened me. It's made me think about things that I do. I'm going to try to do some of those breaths.
Awesome. And I know it just 3 to 4 couple times a day. And after a couple weeks, what's going to happen is you're going to be at a stoplight and somebody's going to frustrate. I'll be in Walmart and I'll just be like, that's a natural expression of that stuck energy. So we just want to ventilate our brains and our oxygen in our lungs, and we want to get that to our executive functioning, and we will be better than we realize we are.
Wonderful. Again, thank you so much.
So nice to meet you.
Finally, to wrap things up, often after a podcast, people want to know more about some of the things that we do at Business Success Unlimited. Talked a little bit about it today in the show, but if you'd like to hop on a Zoom, my contact information is in the show notes. And right now we're getting set for a kickoff of a new chapter of my 10-year-old peer advisory program, where a group of business owners who are all having similar issues running their business come together. They're looking for support, guidance, accountability, a bit of training, and a lot of fun. So if you want some more information, let me know. Send me a message at nancy@businesssuccessunlimited.com. And in the meantime, go ahead.
I will say connection is the number one thing that could be in your corner. So the support is very helpful. I'm glad you're doing this. This is awesome.
Absolutely. And we've had some wonderful people in the group and still have. So, if anybody's interested, let me know. But in the meantime, if you've liked this show, give us some comments, give us some likes, share this with other people. Let me know what kind of topics you'd like to hear going forward. And until next time, get out there, be productive, and soar higher. Take care, everybody. Talk soon. Bye-bye.